Awesome. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Tony. Welcome everybody to Thursday Night Big Book Study Workshop, with the program of recovery laid out by the first 100 men and women. Ray and myself will be hosting tonight. We go through this and I believe in great detail. We hit the pertinent stuff. We bring our experience into it. We bring kind of our introduction into it and where we're at now with it, and sticking with the information in the book. We both have different kind of the same experience, but little different highlights on the book, which brings it alive. And Ray's got some history around the book and information, which makes it exciting. I enjoy it. So where we're at is there's a solution. And we've been covering this in great detail, and you can go back and get caught up with it and kind of go through it with your book. And kind of, so the homework was on page 23, was it not, Ray?
That is correct.
Did you want to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm Ray Shepard. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I delight in great pleasure in saying that my sobriety date is 6 months earlier than Tony, so it's my job to keep him in line.
And what is that? Just so we're all clear.
The 19th of October, 1988.
And we have a urine analysis to prove it's been steady ever since, so it's... That's one of the requirements when he gets his cake. He has to do a hair follicle right for the past year. Oh, we're starting early. Okay, so...
What do we need to start this meeting, Tony?
So we better bring God into it after that introduction. Hey, what do we need for a good meeting, Ray?
We need God. We need God in this meeting. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
I said the prayer.
All yours, Tony.
I'd said the prayer twice to myself, and I thought we did it out loud. So thanks for the clarification.
That tells me how loud your voice is inside you.
Oh, it's an echo chamber up there now. Before it used to bounce off a lot of stuff. Now it's just empty room, empty space. So we kind of been looking at, like, if we kind of they introducing us to new language. So if we back up to page 21. They kind of went through the different types of drinkers that we'll encounter, and also we'll come to our fellowship. And I always do that moderate drinker thing, yes or no, are you that type? Or then we have a certain hard drinker, yes or no, are you that type? And given good reason, can you quit on your own experience? Yes or no. So most of us are all steady no's, right? So then they introduce us to new terminology. They say, well, what about the real alcoholic? Right, and then you get a lot of different, and they're going to explain what they mean by the real alcoholic, because a lot of people will look like an alcoholic, they'll sound like an alcoholic, but given good reason, they could quit based on their own experience, or, psychological, moral, and that's what the doctor talked about. He was successful with a lot of people who had severe drinking problems, right? And you hear, like, if you ever been on a lot of the chats online, like, there's so many different ideas and views and this and that. And so what they're doing is they're explaining it from their experience, right? And so as they all sat around and talked about it, they said, well, this is the collective best way to explain our experience of something that's unexplainable. Right? Because it's really hard to explain. So how can we explain it in a way that those who are afflicted with it will get identification with it and kind of say, yeah, you know what? I have these characteristics or these symptoms too. Right? And so when they got down on page 22, they talked about, why don't we start there? We know while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, which is
on the bottom of page 22.
Yeah.
The last paragraph where it says, we know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men.
So wait a minute. You notice there is, it doesn't say he continues to suffer from alcoholism, and he doesn't, like, he has this ongoing issue. He's not drinking, so he's in the plight of life. He's working, he's doing his thing. Remember Bill, he was doing fantastic things. And then what they talk about as in regards to alcoholism is this thing that happens in the mind that we're going to look at, and in the body, right? So there, we all understand the allergy part. Does that kind of make sense? You notice we blend in, we go undetected, right, by a lot of people. Okay, go ahead.
So as we look at this, and it says, we react much like other men, and we're equally positive that once he takes alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and the mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. And the experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. The non-alcoholic is going to bring all kinds of excuses we covered back on 21. But we understand. So these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink.
Well, remember in Bill's story, he comes out of the bar, life has gone to shit in a handbasket. What does Bill do? Go back to the bar. Most people would stop drinking and try to get their orders in effect. Like I know a lot of people who are normal drinkers, some even heavy drinkers. But give them good reason. They could stop in midstream and take care of what they got to take care of. We will take another drink and take care of what we think we're going to take care of. After another drink, then we forget what we're supposed to take care of. I don't know. Am I talking to the right people here? And got the right.
Well, that's a perfect description then of what they say this next sentence. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. So right there, they're telling us that, while we agree with what Silkworth said about this phenomenon of craving that happens once you drink alcohol, this is the important part, that the main problem centers in the mind. Because if you ask him why he started drinking, chances are he's going to give you any of a number of 100 alibis. This goes with the hundreds of experiences that we had on the previous page. Now then we spin the Rolodex, pull out an excuse. It satisfies us. It doesn't satisfy anyone else, but it satisfies us. And so we offer these excuses. And sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility. They sound real to us, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like this philosophy. I got a headache. Well, give me the ball peen hammer. I'll hit myself in the head. Therefore, I won't feel the headache. Yeah, it sounds like this philosophy. The man has got a headache. He beats himself on the head with a hammer so he can't feel the ache. If you draw that kind of reasoning, that false reasoning, to the attention of the alcoholic, he'll laugh it off. Or he'll become irritated and refuse to talk.
None of us.
No. And here is the example that we all live. Once in a while, we might tell the truth, but we don't know what is the truth. The truth, to strangers say, we usually have no more idea why we took that first drink than you have. Some of us, some drinkers, have these excuses that we're satisfied with part of the time. But in our hearts, we really do not know why we did it. And once this malady, once this disordered way of thinking has a real hold, we're baffled lot.
And why are they baffled?
Oh, because they made a great excuse. They don't know why they're drinking, but they drink anyway.
Yeah, and last week I gave that example about the pistachios. You wouldn't believe how many people say, no, is that true? Are you crazy? So, and I only talked about 3 episodes. We're talking about how many countless vain attempts that we try to stop. Never mind controlling the drug, because we already agreed if I never took the first drink, I wouldn't trigger the allergy, setting for the terrible cycle in motion, right? So the story about the pistachios last week was, why do I keep doing it? Well, there's something psychologically wrong, and I'm baffled why I keep doing it. It's secondary that I'm allergic to it. What in my thinking would allow me to do something that would be detrimental to my own well-being? Does that kind of make sense? That's what they're saying, right? So this obsession here that they're going to talk is very important. We're going to look at an example of that shortly.
So before we go on, Tony, there is an experience that I had with this very thing you're talking about. I used to drink with a guy that was allergic to peanuts, the protein in peanuts. He approached this differently than what you did. You had one trip to the ER, and then you had another trip to the ER, and pretty soon you said, oh, no more trip to the ER. This guy that I drank with, I'm out drinking with him one night, and he said, you got to take me to the ER. I said, why? He said, I'm having an allergic reaction to the peanuts that I'm eating. I said, you know you have a problem with peanuts? And he said, yes. And he said, I forgot my EpiPen. Look at the thinking in that. Would you have gone to that, Tony? I don't think so.
That's what we call soundness of mind. That guy needs more help.
Oh, my God. Talk about insanity.
So why do they do it? Once this malady, so what are they calling the second symptom in alcoholism?
They're calling it, right here, they're calling it a malady. Bill called it an insidious insanity. Well, and we're gonna find out when we get the chapter.
Okay, so hold on a second. Bill referred to it back then in his story. So here they're taking the collective approach, the collective view, right? Collectively, they said this malady, this unexplainable event that they talked about earlier on page 22, says once a certain point is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished for. That means they keep drinking again. And so what do they call this condition? A malady. The derivative from the malady is the insanity, right? Insidious. Now they use a lot of different terminology to try to, or derivatives or kind of symptoms to explain the malady. And a reoccurring event that happens beyond our ability to see, feel, and touch. So it's like the allergy, right? And then the allergy is the actual first symptom in alcoholism. Then they call it these allergic types. They build on that idea, right? So the idea that they're presenting now in regards to the second symptom in alcoholism that centers in the mind, they're putting a kind of a reference to it. They call it the malady. Now we're going to build on that building block. Would that be fair to say, Ray?
I think it is.
Okay.
And this last sentence is the real kicker for us. We often suspect that we're down for the count. And how true this is. In a vague way, our friends and family sense that we're abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will arouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
So there you go. So
hold
on a second.
Yeah.
So exert his power of will. So let's back up and let's look at this line. It says, once this malady has a real hold, they're baffled at why they keep drinking against their own will. Even though they've been able to stay sober for months or years, they're returning to something that's detrimental to their health, their family, their loved ones, anybody, right? There is the obsession that somehow, someday they'll beat the game. What game? Of keeping themselves sober and not taking the first drink. Well, what makes you say that is the information that follows that statement, right? The tragic truth that if the man be a real alcoholic, there's that terminology, right? The happy day may not arrive. What happy day? Of them keeping themselves sober based on their experience. Yeah, see how they're following this through here? So the obsession is keeping themselves sober, right? Learning their lesson, like Bill was an example. But we're going to look at another example of this here shortly. Go ahead.
So as we look at this, that the tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, that happy day will not arrive because he has lost the power of control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail.
So do these people want to drink? No, that's why they started that conversation on page 22. They said, we know if we never took a drink, we'd never trigger the allergy, right? So how is it that we keep drinking again? Well, there's in the mind. So these are not people that are thinking about, obsessed about the idea of controlling and enjoying their drinking. They don't want to drink anymore because they know it's detrimental to their health and everything. But they don't want to do it anymore. Does that kind of make sense? They're not obsessing with the idea of doing it. They're trying to find a way not to do it. They have been through the ringer. They do not want to drink anymore.
Yeah, how can I solve this problem myself? And as they say, this tragic situation's already arrived in practically every case long before it's suspected. They've lost control, but they don't think that they've lost control, and they don't realize they've passed that line in the sand long ago. Then the author says something, and this is very important as we look at this what they call this italicized writing.
But what does that mean? The tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it's suspected. What does that mean?
That means that you don't realize that you've lost this power of self to fix self. You can't do that. So the tragic situation is.
So step one has been in place long before I suspected it.
Long before you suspected it.
So step one seems to have these people. They don't have it. It has them. And somewhere along the line, they don't realize that they've passed into a place where they can't keep themselves sober. But the continuation of trying to get sober and not being able to do it is alarming to us now, but it's been happening for a while. Is that what it's kind of saying?
That is exactly what it's saying.
Oh, that's okay. Just clarify that.
And then they go on. In this next paragraph, they said, not only have you lost control when you're drinking, you can't even plan when you're going to drink anymore. The fact is that for most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, they've lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago without defense against that first drink.
And you know what's cool about that is they all sat around and came to that conclusion by talking about their experience. These other people that seemed to quit got some help from Dr. Silkworth and were able to go on and be successful. Bill was hoping he was of that type and left treatment for a while. Then he found himself drinking, which he was baffled that he was alarmed that he was back drinking again. Then he ended up in treatment the second time, not so happy the second time as he was the first time. There's some intervention happening, and he continues to do this thing, which is wild, is they all sat around and said, well, what's our common experience with this? And they talked about events in their life where they planned on staying sober and not drinking again and found themselves drinking. I said, well, what happened? And I said, I don't know what happened. I just found myself drinking. Like I was through forever. I was never going to, everybody around me was thrilled with the fact that I was sober and I showed up drunk. I don't know, nobody else has that story here. Just, right? Okay.
See, that's the importance of the collective experience, because if we can see their experience, we can then chart our own experience in accordance with that.
So we're going to bounce down now to at the bottom. When this sort of thinking is fully established, what sort of thinking? This without defense, me drinking against my own will, me making solemn oaths and promises, and me drinking again. Right?
Yeah.
Anybody like that here?
I think we all are.
But we've tied excuses to it in the past. As long as there's an excuse to it, I'm not powerless. But if I really look at it, how many times have I drinking against my own will? Right? That's the evidence. Like, how well you been doing so far? Oh, I got another 24-hour chip. Not bad. Okay, go ahead. When this sort of thinking...
the diagnosis then, when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies...
What's the tendencies? Not my... I keep drinking. That's the... I keep drinking. That's the unmanageability. Right. That's the... Right? So what...
Notice they're not saying here that when an individual who's a real alcoholic does this, they're saying, no, this is the progression that we're seeing. This sort of thinking, when it's fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he's probably placed himself beyond human aid. And unless locked up, he may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would be thousands more convincing demonstrations. Many want to stop, but cannot.
Why? Because of the malady, an unexplainable event. A lot of people want to tie behaviors to it, right? You notice they've never used the example, well, my alcoholic thinking, I was an alcoholic before I drank. No, there's only one way to be alcoholic. You got to drink. And alcohol reveals alcoholism. It doesn't cause it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So regardless, yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and this gets us back to the comment you always make about the restless, irritable, discontenteds. That the human condition is, everybody's got that.
Well, most
That's
people know how to
alcoholism.
subside that, but us, we don't.
Yeah. So now then Bill switches. He says, here's the problem as we see it, and in a general way, we're going to tell you the solution. He said, there is a solution. He said, none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings.
Just before you go through there, so what they're talking about here, one second, I'll get the door. So what they're talking about here, we've been looking at step 1, yes? Now we're going to look at the overview of step 2. Step 2 is the course of action necessary to bring about a change to recover from step 1. So there is a solution, is the introduction to the idea that was introduced from the beginning of the book, but in the doctor's opinion, right? And here they're going to really do an overlay of it, is the introduction of step 2. There is a solution to what? To this problem, right?
Right. This goes along with what Ebby shows up and he says, I'm bringing a simple idea and a practical program of action.
And this is
here he's going to outline the practical program of action. None of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of our shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. We have to do that if we're going to successfully complete that plan of action.
Yeah. Of course we don't like the idea.
I don't want to look to myself.
But what's the alternative, right? Go ahead.
Well, we saw, though, that it really worked in others. These are the authors looking at those in whom the problem had been solved. So we saw it worked in others, and we'd come to believe in the hopelessness and the futility of life as we had been living it.
Why? Because we keep drinking all the time. It doesn't make for a good life, does it?
But I'm so strong-willed, why can't I stop this stuff?
Or look how I did good for 6 months, 3 months, 2 years. Well, no, you didn't. You just prolonged the inevitable, right?
So when we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, let me read that again and emphasize.
What solved? Not working on?
When we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved.
Notice it didn't say continue working on, right? Those who are still working on it. Solved.
Right. Yeah, we reach that point where we know we can't work on it anymore. They're coming to us, and they've solved this problem. Remember at the beginning, they all had solved the drink problem? So there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up this simple kit of spiritual tools that they laid at our feet. In other words, here's what we did. You got to do it. We're not going to do it for you. So we're putting it here. You pick it up. Take these actions. And so we found much of heaven. And we've been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence that we hadn't even dreamed. These are the authors saying, after they picked up that kit of spiritual tools, that they have found much of heaven here on earth. And they've been rocketed to a fourth dimension of existence that they had never dreamed of ever achieving.
We like being rocketed, eh? How many people like to be rocked? Right?
That's like being launched.
Yeah. Right?
So the great fact is this, and it's nothing less than this. We have had deep and effective spiritual experiences.
Not self-awareness.
And this deep and effective spiritual experience has revolutionized our whole attitude toward life.
That's big words, eh? Big words to describe something spectacular. Right?
but we'll take a look at the meaning of them pretty soon. That is revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way that's indeed miraculous. Remember Ebby coming to Bill, changed, sober, Bill looking at his drinking buddy, wondering, how the hell did you get sober? And he said, how did you get that power that you got, that you say you got? Because you got no more power in you than I have. And here's Ebby living this, as we're saying here, the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous. He's commenced to accomplish those things for us we could never do by ourselves.
So you notice it's a continuation of the problem is unanimous. It is collective. They all agree on the explanation, how they explain it. That's why they put it in this basic text that way. They all looked at it. They all agreed it best represents their experience. All of them, collectively. So you got to look at that, right? And then same with the solution. You notice it's not singular. They've all had an experience as the result of going through a course of action. To the degree they kind of acknowledge that is we'll look at it later in the spiritual appendix, but the same thing has happened. Change sufficient enough to allow them to recover, to have the problem removed. What problem removed? Well, that's interesting. They mentioned the malady of the mind. They no longer have an alcoholic mind. They're left with the human dilemma that they apply spiritual principles to that answer all their problems. But as long as the malady of the mind's still present, they'll delude themselves into believing they're good. They're doing good. The goose hung high for 3 or more months. Mm-hmm. Everybody was thinking I was doing fantastic. I got a 3-month chip. The obsession is gone. I don't think about it no more. Things are fantastic. Holy shit, I'm drinking with a 3-month chip in my pocket. Suddenly, without defense. 360 meetings in 90 days after 11 years in and out. Best talk you ever heard. The angels were starting to kick in, right? It was great. Then drinking an hour later. Okay. So,
but there's a little asterisk there, Tony.
Yep.
And at the bottom of the page, it says, to fully explain this spiritual experience, we got to go to Appendix 2.
But we're going to do that later. We're not going to go do that now.
Okay, we'll go to it later then. All right. So the authors are saying, and this, remember, this is their collective experience. If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were.
Not some of us, as we were. Those who put this together since thousands. It's collective, not singular. Are you like us?
We have a common solution. This is their common solution. Said, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we have but 2 alternatives. 1, go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could.
Step 1.
Or the other.
That's step 1, right? The step 1 promises I'm going to continue to do this.
That is, and that is something that needs to be stated and restated. Step 1 promise is, I will drink again no matter what. Or accept spiritual help.
So this is interesting. When an alternative, the way it was explained to me is you can make a decision, you can make a choice, but that doesn't create the change. What the change comes is as the result, the alternative. Meaning, I'm coming home from work, and the highway on the GPS will show red, and it'll give me an alternative way to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I have to go on that route to experience what it was offering. And as the result of that route, that new course of action, I was able to have a different experience than step 1, right? So as the result, as the alternative, I need to engage in the alternative because I'm already experiencing the first alternative is step 1. I'm here as the result of this condition, having me not having it. So I need a new experience. That means I need to move in a new direction. And as the alternative, afterwards, I could experience these things. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I repeat that again, Tony, because that is absolutely important to understand. Two alternatives. Both of them require action. The first alternative, keep on drinking. Or the second alternative, accept spiritual help.
That's it. So I'm being offered a different route in the GPS. I need to take it. Otherwise, I'm still on the first alternative. Like, as the result of step one, I'm in this condition. Right? In order to have a new experience, I need to move in a new direction, or I'm still left with... So if I don't get off the highway and take the new route being offered, I'm still stuck on the road I'm on. Right?
And here's what the author said then. We did this because we honestly wanted to, and we were willing to make the effort.
So here we go. So now they're going to go back to the struggles of the human condition, but for people like us. Our biggest challenge to this whole thing is our thinking, our view, and our interpretation of things. We need a collective kind of view and approach to this thing where we can all agree. That means when I'm working with somebody, they need to get in tune with what the book's saying and move in that direction. Do you understand what's being said? Do you understand, right, what they're trying to get across here? So, remember earlier they talked about this obsession. The book never leaves you hanging, right? So on page 23, they talked about our first obsession is us being our own solution. There's the obsession that somehow, someday, we'll beat the game. Right? Anybody ever do that? How many people's relapsed here went to a meeting and tell everybody how they're going to get sober this time? Anybody here, new people, say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Can I share? They always get people who are coming back to share, and they all sharing their ideas. I've never met one person in the last 36 years, including me of 11 years in it, ever come in and go, my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea how to approach this, and I think, maybe that I don't know what the hell's going on. I've never done that, right? No one's ever done, because here, can I have one more guess, right? So here, on page 27, they're going to give us an example of what the obsession looks like in our lives before we're beaten into a state of reasonableness, or till we have the step one experience. And the step one experience that we're going to look at in this story could be brought about two ways. Only really one way is the introduction of the information and the looking at it in our lives and then to have an experience. So this guy, let's look at his story. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's set this up because this is crucial. The way he thought is that there's a certain businessman. He had ability, good sense, high character. Sounds like Silkworth describing Bill.
Sounds like he's talking about me.
Yeah. Even though he was a successful businessman of good earning capacity, he was an alcoholic I described as hopeless. And so this guy, for years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. This guy's in multiple treatment centers. He said he consulted the best-known American psychiatrist. Then he went to Europe, and he put himself in the care of the celebrated physician, the psychiatrist, Dr. Jung, who prescribed for him, much like what Silkworth prescribed for Bill. Though the experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. Remember, he'd floundered from one sanitarium to another. He was skeptical about this treatment that he was getting from Dr. Jung. But he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. And above all, he believed he'd acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable.
So relapse was unthinkable. What that translates to a lot of people, I don't know where it come from, but the idea is they keep relapsing because they don't have step one. No, step one has you. That's why you keep relapsing. Like we do big book study workshops. I've been doing like 36 years now, and Monday night we have a big group of people starting to, and guys show up and I ask them why did they relapse. They say because I haven't got step one yet. They're under the impression that when they get step one, they'll stop relapsing, but that's not our step one. That idea sounds nice. That's the obsession. Once I figure this out, watch out for my triggers, watch out for this, watch out for that. Look at the family of origin. Look at why I keep doing these things. There's got to be reason. So these people are like this guy here. Okay, go ahead.
So he said that his physical and mental condition were unusually good. He'd acquired such a profound working of the inner workings of his mind that hidden springs were unthinkable, yet he was drunk in a short time. And more baffling still, he couldn't give himself a satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to the doctor, whom he admired, and he asked him.
Oh, 1 second. So sorry. On relapse was unthinkable. So if somebody has done step one and they think relapse is unthinkable, have they done step one?
No.
They haven't done step one.
No.
Right? Because
no,
then...
They don't, that's right. They don't realize it.
So step one is the admittance that this is going to happen again, and there's got to be a significant enough solution for this doesn't continue in my life, right? Go ahead.
Or as the authors say in chapter 3, we have to concede, not just admit, not just surrender, but concede that step one has got us.
Yeah, and it's the first step in recovery, where you hear people say relapse isn't a part of recovery. It's the first step.
It is.
It's the first step. Because if you've never relapsed, why would you seek help? People don't understand what relapse means. Right? Relapse is moving back to an undesirable condition that I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
This is where we usually lose people, right? Okay, go ahead.
So as we go into this now, this is going to be really important as we understand the thinking in the mind of one who thought that relapse was unthinkable. He returns to the doctor, whom he admired. He asked him point blank, why could I not recover? He wished above all things to regain self-control.
Don't we all, eh?
He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to his other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol.
So self-control is back on page 23, right? They talk about that, rise from their lethargy and exert their self-will, self-control. This is the example of the obsession on page 23. It's one of the first ones that need to be smashed in regards to step one, right?
And even going along with that, on page 22, the authors are going to answer this question. They said, we don't have an answer to that riddle. We can't answer it. And here yet they're posing the question again to drive home the point. We don't have the answer and you don't have the answer. Look at all of the excuses you made that you were satisfied with, but yet you kept drinking. So he begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. Oh my God, here we heard it again. Hopeless. He'd never regain his position in society. He'd have to put himself under lock and key. He'd have to hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion.
Why? Because this guy's done everything. He's flown to has the best help available to him. Everybody's got involved. You're doing great. You're doing fantastic. What do you mean you're drinking again? We don't know what to do with you. Anybody have that story?
And the importance here is that as we look at this MD, this physician, it's very similar to what Silkworth said to Bill. I don't know what to do with you. You're hopeless and you're doomed. You can't do anything yourself, and I can't do anything for you. But the man still lives. The man still lives, and he's free. He does not need a bodyguard. He's not confined. He can go anywhere on earth that other free men may go without disaster provided. provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude.
So they call the principles attitude now, right? Simple rules, right? Ideas contained in this book. So same thing, right? The information. Okay.
And even more, we're going to come to this at the end of chapter 4 when Bill actually tells us attitude. And the attitude is, can you set aside your prejudice? Can you think honestly? And can you search deeply within yourself? So if he can maintain that certain simple attitude, then he'll remain free. Well, some of our alcoholic readers might think that they can do without spiritual help.
The alternative.
So let's tell you
right?
the
Without
rest of
the
the
alternative, right?
The rest of the story, here it comes. The doctor said, you got the mind of a chronic alcoholic. So I've never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you.
So what does that, that is the malady, right? The state of mind, chronic alcoholic, repeat offender, the state of mind. So he's looking at his life. Watch what happens in his thinking here. It's very interesting. This is the way we are, right? Go ahead.
So he said, my God, the gates of hell are closing on me in a clang.
Why?
And so he said,
why? Why? So he's having a step one experience here, right? Why?
Yeah.
I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind exists to the extent it does in you. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed in on him with a clang. That's the true step one experience.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not drinking right now. He's reviewing. And as we review, that's what happens. We get the information. We diagnose ourselves and go, oh my God. Right? When I got to this and 3 o'clock in the morning, I realized I was going to die an alcoholic death, but I didn't know why. But when they took me through this, I made clear why I kept on relapsing in spite of everything I tried to do not to. Right? I had the step one experience.
What Tony is saying is going to come to we're going to revisit that when we get into the rest of the steps, because they're going to introduce a very keen set of words as we move into the middle steps and toward the end of the program. It's going to say, look at. And they're asking us here, can you look at your step one experience? And so he said to the doctor, is there no exception?
So this is interesting. So he feels like the gates of hell slammed in on him. Right now he's talking to the doctor. Watch the roller coaster here. Ready? Go ahead.
He said, yes, replied the doctor, there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have what are called vital spiritual experiences. And to me, these occurrences are phenomena. In other words, I can't explain them.
So what do they call our solution? What does he call our solution? Is a phenomenon, an unexplainable event that they've witnessed. Dr. Silkworth has witnessed it. This doctor hasn't.
Yeah.
He heard about it since the beginning of time. He knows about it, but he's never witnessed it. Dr. Silkworth has witnessed this phenomenon. Right? Go ahead.
So as Silkworth is relating this, he said, or Jung is relating this, he said, these phenomena appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, how you think, feel, and believe that used to guide your lives, that were the guiding forces of the lives of these men, they're suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them.
So instead of an instinct-based, power-driven life, they become spiritual-based. So they move from the Neanderthal experience to the spiritual being that we are. We start to have, we're human beings having a spiritual experience, a spiritual entity, or what's another way to explain that, Ray?
Well, in regard to what you're saying, Tony, it really is asking us, do you see the spirit that lives within you? Are you living in a spirit of intolerance, antagonism, belligerence, defiance, obstinance? Or are you demonstrating a spirit of patience, tolerance, kindness, love? I think this is in essence what Jung is asking us to consider. Completely new set of conceptions and motives that are going to dominate us. And he says, I've been trying to provide that emotional rearrangement in you and with many individuals. The methods that I have used are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description.
Interesting.
Now,
Interesting.
This is what, and this is what Jung told Roland Hazard. Here's what Roland Hazard heard. Doc, I'm a good church member.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to expand on. Hold on a sec. So this doctor's reiterating where Dr. Silkworth has reiterated, and countless other doctors and treatment centers and facilities and people, we could add the list ad infinitum. When dealing with these certain types of people, they look like they're getting they look like they're recreating their life. They look like they're doing really well. But something's still lying dormant because it hasn't been removed. It's still present that they can't see, feel, and touch. And the people around them can't see, feel, and touch it because it's undetected. And when it presents itself again, it comes in the form of a drink with we're without defense. Then we take the allergy, and everybody, including us, is baffled why this has happened. We can't answer the riddle, and to these occurrences that we'll find out later are phenomena. They're in the malady that we know that it exists. This is what it looks like. We can't explain it, but once this psychic change or spiritual experience happens, there's very same people who seem doomed, right? Seem to recover from this very thing. We can't explain either one, but we've witnessed both of them.
It really, this calls us back to understand the serenity prayer, because as it was originally written, it started off with, grant me the grace to accept with serenity. Grace, power. Grant me the power to accept with serenity. So it's a gift that we're given. And we can't explain it. As Tony said, it's a phenomenon. We can't see, touch, or feel this thing, but we can experience it.
So he feels like shit. The doctor tells him, yes, there's a solution, a spiritual base. And now he feels good again. It's like the roller coaster. Yeah. He's going back to the idea of being his own solution again. Right? Yeah. The obsession, right? Go ahead.
So on hearing this, our friend is relieved. He reflected, I'm a good church member. But that hope was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while your religious convictions are good, in your case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience.
Translate to, even though your understanding of God and your experience thus far with God and your belief system with God isn't working. So you need to understand our understanding based on our experience and our approach to create the shift. Go ahead.
So as we look at what's happening, they don't tell us that spiritual experience that Roland has. The top of page 28, it said, here was the dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we've already told you, it made him a free man. They never tell us what happened. But what Jung told Roland was that I can't help you. You need to go back to America, and you need to tie up with a group called the Oxford Group. I hear that they have a way to get you in touch with this spiritual experience that you need to see. And so he goes back and he flounders around for a few years before he eventually gets in touch with Dr. Sam Shoemaker, who was the rector of the Episcopal Church where the Oxford Group was housed in New York. And there he recovered from his illness. And remember, Roland then was the one that brought this message to Evie. So the authors, as they go on, and this to me is, again, a very important reiteration of this program. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A
reed,
new life has been given us.
R-E-E-D, not R-E-A-D. Reed.
Right.
This is
reed,
like the flimsy reed, like the plant in the wind or whatever, right?
And you see, in my reading of this the first time when I read that, Tony, I thought read, and I immediately went back to all these Western movies that I used to see. And when the good guy was being chased by the bad guys, he'd jump off his horse, he'd get in the water, he'd pull a reed, and he'd go underwater and he'd breathe through this reed.
Okay.
And I looked at that and I thought, this is the breath of life that they're talking about. And so what seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. It's the third time that they have said that so far in the book. At the end of the first edition, the first paragraph, they tell us about this new way of living. Bill said the same thing, that this is a design for living that works in rough going. Now the authors are telling us again, this really works. And so the distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experiences, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We've got no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen, if it means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, color, or creed, we are all the children of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship on simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. The common solution: develop a relationship on simple and understandable terms. He said that those who have religious affiliations, we find nothing disturbing here. There's no friction over such matters. We think it's no concern of ours what religious bodies you identify with as individuals. It's entirely a personal affair. You can decide for yourself in light of your past associations or your present choices. And not all of us join religious bodies. We favor those memberships. So in the following chapter, in chapter 3, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it.
Okay, hold it there.
As we understand it.
Okay, 1 second. It says, as we understand, again, reiterating their thing. Back on page 19, it says, we have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting for the problem as we see it. So they're going to explain the problem as they see it and the solution as they see it. Their experience, right? Both in regards to alcoholism and the chapter to the agnostic. It's them talking to us about their understanding that we need to acquire in order for us to choose our own conception. Go ahead.
So in chapter 3, then, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. And then there's a chapter addressed to the agnostic, chapter 4. Many who were once in that class, many who were once agnostic, are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find those convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. They're going to tell us their experiences and what they did in chapters 5 and 6. And these are followed then by 42 personal experiences. These are the stories that are in the second portion of this book. Each individual in his personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what's actually happened in their lives. They're talking about the stories from the first edition book. If you don't have a first edition book, you can get the book called Experience, Strength, and Hope. They have all of the stories that are not published in the fourth edition in that book. The authors conclude this chapter, and they say, we hope that no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe it's only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them too. I must have this thing. I must be an alcoholic as well. I must have this illness called alcoholism.
And I must have this, and I must have this solution too. So really cool. So I enjoyed today. It was really good. So the next chapter is more about alcoholism. What do you think they'll be talking about more about alcoholism? More about what we've already talked about. They're going to expand on that. They're going to expand on those points. On a deeper level. And we're going to really clear up some misunderstanding that the fellowship is totally bastardized in regards to their understanding of what's being presented here. So we're going to cause a lot of sparks next week. So you don't want to miss that, right? We're going to have a lot of fun, right?
Counterpoint, human condition versus alcoholic condition. And this, you won't want to miss next week.
So if you that's right. If you want to read ahead from page 30 to 33 talks about the first symptom, and from page 33 on to 44 talks about the second symptom. So for those that I really enjoyed today. So for those who wish, we'll close with Serenity Prayer. We have a 7th edition. We have in the chat. We also have a group chatting afterwards. We'll have a question and answer period for those who wish to join us. But we'll close this segment off with the Serenity Prayer for those who wish. And what do we need for a great life, right?
God. Grant me serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Live long and prosperous. May the force be with you.